Still, what's your stance on the uniform policy?
I've never voted for uniform policy.
Hi, welcome to Observations.
Hello, welcome to Observations. I'm Brian McMillan, and I have with me Trevor Tucker from the Flagler County School Board. Welcome, Trevor.
Thank you for having me.
I really think you have a great-looking shirt on, by the way.
I appreciate it.
We did not coordinate this, if you can believe it. So, Trevor Tucker, School Board Chairman, you've been on the school board since 2010.
Yes, sir.
What drives you to serve your community on the school board?
Mainly that I have children in the school system. Without that, I'll be realistic, I don't know if I would be on the school board.
You don't find enjoyment from just going to the meetings in general?
Not really, but I do find this, it's good when you get something done, you accomplish something. Yeah. That has a good feeling, but there's a lot of monotony in being on this position.
Yes, I think people may not always think about that with public service like this, like how much mundane kind of activity you have to go through to keep everything running, and you have to do it. There's a lot of votes that are kind of almost
they're systematic.
Yeah, exactly.
When you say, hold on, let's have a discussion about the payroll. Are we not going to pay everyone in the school district? We have to prove the payroll.
Yep, exactly. So you also have a life outside of your school board service. You own Sun Country Pest Control. So I was wondering, how is running a pest control company like running the school board?
They are not very similar, to be truthful with you. The only thing you have is you do have customers in both, whether those customers happen to be students or folks who need to get rid of roaches. Mm-hmm. You have customers. You want to satisfy those customers and make them happy. The actual role of those two management are a little bit different. Accounting is pretty simple in most businesses. Governmental accounting is completely and totally different than business accounting. Mm-hmm. It's baffling the way the governmental accounting works.
So there's no analogous, like there's bugs in your business, and what are those bugs in the school board?
No.
Nothing like that. Okay, well, we won't go there. So let's talk about last night's school board meeting. You know, if you're watching this, it was just yesterday on the 17th that it was kind of a raucous meeting. I was not there. I read about it afterward. We wrote about it for the Observer, but can you tell us like what happened at the school board meeting yesterday?
Basically, during public comment, we have rules that we expect everyone to follow, and some of those rules weren't followed, and so they continued not being followed after so many warnings, and then we asked to clear the room so that the people can be heard in public comment, and there's not intimidation. That's what you worry about with public comment. If you have people clapping and then someone gets up and they get booed, is that person who gets booed ever going to want to come up again? So we have no clapping, no response from the audience, please, no response from the school board. It's not a question and answer time. It's for a time for the board to hear comments from the public.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people don't fully understand that. Like they think that it will be an exchange, or they feel like at the end of 3 minutes, they're sort of, sometimes people feel kind of insulted or defensive that they got cut off, that there was a bell or something. Why is it 3 minutes? You wouldn't mind hearing 10 or 20 minutes from one person, would you?
Well, the 3 minutes was established before I was on the board, and
would you?
I would not say I would want to extend it for 10 or 20 minutes. You could have people grandstand, and we're there already for a good long period of time. And it's not a public hearing. These are business meetings where we're trying to actually vote on things and get things done. Mm-hmm. Public hearings, you're supposed to have plenty of time for the public to display or speak to you about what their concerns are. We have to have certain public hearings a year. Millage rate, no one comes to it. It's very sad, but that's a public hearing, and we don't hear from the public during that time. Mm-hmm. That's one example. But we do want to hear from the public, but we don't want to hear from the public all night long because you'll never get the business done.
Yep, gotcha. So as the chair of the meeting, you're running it. So what is going on in your mind when it starts to get kind of more rowdy, or there's, I don't want to say rowdy, maybe it was rowdy. Deputies had to come in and kind of clear things out. So what's going on in your mind, like your responsibility to make the meeting run smoothly?
So the attorney is the sergeant at arms. I'm running the meeting, and you hope that everyone adheres to the rules. You give multiple warnings, and you hope that is enough. It's strange. This is the first time we've ever had to ask a crowd to leave.
Right. Yeah.
I don't feel, but whenever people get agitated and yelling and it's past the 3 minutes, and you say, will you please, your 3 minutes is up and they're still yelling, what do you do at that point in time? Mm-hmm. That kind of makes you want to stop the meeting.
Yeah, right. Well, in case you were feeling left out, it happened at the city, happened at the county, so school board gets its turn.
I was really hoping for a much better record than that, like never.
Yeah, exactly. So about masks. So do you sympathize with the people who are really opposed to mask wearing?
Who are opposed to it?
Who are opposed to a mask mandate at schools. Do you sympathize with those, with that stance?
A little bit. I will wear a mask or not wear a mask if it makes people feel comfortable. I don't particularly like to wear a mask. But I do feel that the Florida Department of Health, their guidelines say, parents have that option. That's the one thing that we don't, in my opinion, get to mess with. It's the guidelines. 2 districts in the state of Florida are tried it. And yesterday afternoon at the State Board of Education, they're investigating those districts, and we don't know what those consequences are going to be. They even hinted at removing school board members and superintendents. Mm-hmm. That's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. What is, shifting gears here, what is the future of the uniform policy? It was brought up at a recent meeting. Cheryl Massaro brought it up, for example, saying, do we really want to have so many referrals, and does it really make sense still? What's your stance on the uniform policy?
I'm actually pretty easy with, it doesn't really matter as long as children are being educated. I don't really care what they wear as long as it's appropriate and it's not offensive. I've never voted for a uniform policy, but we already have one. I don't want to change it every year, though. I will say that. Like, every year we have someone wants to change the uniform policy. I don't want to go through that every year.
Right. Do you think that it is going to be eliminated as far as like polos and things like that? There has to be some kind of dress code, right?
Yes, there has to be some kind of dress code, and I don't know. I mean, in the past, we used to receive funding for a uniform.
The school district got funding?
From the state, if you had a uniform policy. That disappeared 2 years ago, I think, but it's disappeared. Well, with that, do you change your policy to make it easier on students and staff and families? Mm-hmm. I don't know. Without that funding, I don't know why the state said here's funding for a uniform policy.
Yeah. Well, just so you know, my son talked to some of his friends, and they don't want the uniform policy. In case you wanted that feedback,
My kids don't want the uniform policy either. They'd like to wear T-shirts and soccer shorts
there
every day.
There you go. Perfect. Okay, so there are a lot of homes and apartments planned in Palm Coast. So how long is it going to be until we need a new school?
If the growth continues, that's a big if. This could fall off the cliff.
There's a lot of homes that are approved, but it's not like they're built yet. It seems like everything's going crazy and there's a lot of homes being built, but you don't know if they're all going to be built that are approved. But.
Right. So this is the first time in quite a few years we've had a significant jump in students. 600 more students this year than last year is kind of a large number.
Bringing us up to 13,500-ish,
yes,
something like
somewhere
that.
around there. Yeah. But with that, if that growth continues, we will probably 2 to 3 years at least need in the secondary either an addition or a new school in the secondary. That's if we do the rezoning. If we don't, this is kind of a catch-22. So you have to rezone because you have to use capacity in order to build a new school. Mm-hmm. So if you don't rezone and maximize the student stations you have, the state will not let you build a new school. So if you maxed out 2 schools and had tons of seats in 2 others, they would say, why aren't you utilizing your space correctly? No, you can't build a new school.
Makes sense.
It does.
There's a lot of rules that the state seems to control with the local school boards. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, it's probably the majority.
So the school board has raised its impact fees. Related question. So that means that it's likely that new homes are going to cost a few $1,000s more each year. Why was that necessary?
So basically, that money has to be built for new student stations.
You can't renovate an existing school.
No, you cannot, unless it somehow adds a new student station. So it has to be for new student stations, or some of it can be used to pay off old student stations, like old debt that was used for new student stations. So the idea is that if you use impact fees, it will pay for a part of a new school or an addition. Unfortunately, schooling, I think it's over $90 million for high school. That baffles me. Wow. It's a lot of money. Elementary schools are, I 40 million on estimates, and that's without the property, buying property.
Yeah, wow.
Baffles me.
Does the school board have plenty of property to make for new schools?
Yes. Personally.
Should it sell some of the property?
In my opinion, yes.
Yeah, okay.
If we're not going to use it, why keep it?
Good question. All right, so let's talk about the half-penny sales tax. This has been in place for multiple years. How many years? I didn't look that up, sorry.
Ever since I've been on the board.
Okay, so a lot of years, and it was used specifically for technology.
And capital.
So it keeps, one thing it did was get a device in every kid's hands, which was helpful during the pandemic.
For sure. I feel our district was really ahead because we didn't have to order laptops. A lot of schools, the district were ordering laptops. They were getting them to students 6 months after the school year started. Parents had to go to school to pick up worksheets. That's a hard situation. If a parent doesn't pick up the worksheets, what happens? Unless they had their own device at home, they could not communicate with the teachers. How would you do that? And it was really fluid, especially with remote live last year, because if a student did get quarantined or sick, they could pull up their laptop, hop on Zoom and watch their class. It was really nice to have that technology, and it's really great the taxpayers allowed us to do this.
So that's coming up to renew, right?
2022.
In 2022. So
I'm hoping.
You're hoping it works.
I'm really hoping it works. If not, we will probably not have technology in our district the way we have it now. We'll still have some technology, but it probably won't be pushed all the way down into the elementary schools as it is now. It'll probably be mainly secondary. I don't see how you can continue to fund that large amount of technology.
A lot to go into with that one in the next several months before the vote comes. So a few kind of general things to wrap up here. So what is a rule of leadership that you try to follow?
Give everyone a chance to speak and just be consistent. Mm-hmm. That's my main focus, to be consistent and to support the district in whatever needs they need to make education occur.
Give a chance for everybody to speak. I like that. You're up for re-election in 2022?
We'll see.
You're not decided yet?
I'm not decided.
Are you announcing something right now, or
no? I'm not decided.
You haven't decided yet if you're running
again.
12 years. It'll be 12 years that you're on the board at that point, right? Just about.
Yeah, 12.
Somewhere around there. You took over in January, I think, in the first time appointed.
I was appointed. Yeah. So like an extra 6 months or something.
Yeah. Okay. Last question is, what have you learned about this community from serving on the school board that maybe you wouldn't have if you weren't involved in this way?
As long as people are happy, you don't hear from them. The moment something is not going right, you hear from a lot of individuals. Mm-hmm. But overall, I actually think almost everyone cares about the education in business, everyone. And I feel like that's somewhat unique for a community. I feel like a lot of communities, school districts separate, and the business community is not partnered with them. But here I feel like the business community, the other governments are pretty partnered with our school district. Mm-hmm. We do have some odd things in our school district that we don't have in any other place. Besides the one-to-one technology, built our summer racket club. There's an odd, that's something different that we don't have in other places. Yeah. So as a school district, I feel like they're getting things done to move the schools forward in a better education. It's hard to sustain like the flagship programs. Whenever I say that, every time you add a flagship program, you have to get rid of something because there's only a limited amount of students unless you start having this large growth. Mm-hmm. So if you for example, you added the fire academy, did you take anything away? If you don't take anything away now, you don't have enough seats to.
Yeah. So is this is this more words than you said in any school board meeting in the past?
More than likely.
Probably that. Yeah. Very good. Well, thank you very much for joining me on Observations. Again, I'm Brian McMillan. This is my guest, Trevor Tucker from the Flagler County School Board.